Hello students, welcome to another lesson presented by the Learning Depot. In today's lesson, you will learn all about conditionals. You will learn about the zero, first, second, and third conditional. You will learn about mixed conditionals, inverted conditionals, and how the subjunctive mood is triggered, especially in the second conditional. You will learn words to replace if in the if clause and other modals that can be used in the results clause. You'll also have a chance to show what you know by taking a short quiz. So let's begin. The zero conditional is used to express a fact, something that is always true. It is absolute and certain. All conditionals have two clauses, the if clause and the results clause. In the zero conditional, you will use the if plus the present simple and the present simple in the results clause. If it rains, the grass gets wet. When I wear tight shoes, I get blisters on my feet. As you can see, these are all absolute, always true, factual examples. And that's what the zero conditional does. Now you notice that I used when in place of if in the if clause, and this is perfectly acceptable. Later on in the video, we're going to look at all the words that we could use in place of if and any modals that we could use in the results clause. Let's go on to the first conditional. The first conditional expresses possible future results. It's usually used to discuss plans, superstitions, promises, threats, warnings, and even advice. This is sometimes called the future real conditional. The first conditional is formed by using if plus the present simple in the if clause and will plus the infinitive in the results clause. If I come home before you, I will start dinner. If you press that button, the bell will ring. As you can see, the first conditional is used to express possible future results, to discuss plans, superstitions, promises, threats, warnings, or advice. Let's go on to the second conditional. The second conditional is used to express unreal, unlikely, hypothetical, and imaginary situations. It's used to express dreams and things that are unlikely to happen in the future. The second conditional is formed by using if plus the past simple in the if clause and would plus the infinitive in the results clause. If I were healthy, I would help the less fortunate. Notice that for the be verb, we use were, which is the plural of was. So you must ask, why are we using were with I if I were? Were is plural, I is singular. Well, we use were to indicate that the situation is unlikely, it is hypothetical, it is imaginary. I am not rich, I am not wealthy, I was never wealthy, so I say were. Let's interrupt the lesson for a moment and clarify how sometimes the conditional expressing an unreal situation will trigger the subjunctive mood. Remember that the form of the past subjunctive is almost the same as the simple past tense. The main difference is that for the be verb, the form is always were. The subjunctive mood expresses wishes, suggestions, demands, or desires. And conditional clauses, especially the second conditional, can take on the subjunctive mood. If you want to review the subjunctive mood, go ahead and review the previous lesson on verb mood. I'll link it up here and down below. Let's continue with the lesson. If I had the money, I would buy the latest phone. If I had the money, I would be traveling around the world. But I don't, so I don't have the latest phone and I'm not traveling around the world. Again, the second conditional is used to express unreal, unlikely, hypothetical, and imaginary situations. And finally, let's review the third conditional. This conditional deals with situations in the past that are unreal. They didn't happen. We can still imagine what the consequences would have been, but again, it's hypothetical. It is too late. It is gone. It is in the past. This conditional is mainly used to express regrets, complaints, and criticisms. It is formed by using if plus the past perfect in the if clause and would have plus the past participle in the results clause. If I had come home early, I would have seen the burglar. If she had learned a second language, she would have received the promotion. As you can see in these examples, these are situations that are gone. They're past. They did not happen. You can still imagine what the consequences would have been, but again, it's too late. It's in the past. You notice that these sentences have a tone of regret, of complaint, and of criticism. Now let's go on to mixed conditionals. Now that we have reviewed the 0, first, second, and third conditional, let's go on to mixed conditionals. Native speakers use mixed conditionals all the time. Remember, often we want to describe a more nuanced situation of time and events, and mixed conditionals can do this. Mixed conditionals are still unreal and impossible situations. You have two types of mixed conditionals. One of these shows how a past action affects the present, and the other one shows how a present action affects the past. Let's look at the first type of mixed conditional, where a past action affects the present. What we're doing here to form this type of conditional is we're taking the if clause from the third conditional and we will mix it with the results clause from the second conditional. So it is formed by using if plus the past perfect in the if clause and would plus the infinitive in the results clause. Let's look at some examples. If I had not missed the flight, I would be in Spain today. If we had bought the extended insurance policy, we would have coverage for the accident. Let's go on to the second example of a mixed conditional. And this is where a present action affects the past. This type of conditional is formed by taking the if clause from the second conditional and mixing it with the results clause from the third conditional. So it is formed by using if plus the past simple and would have plus the past participle. If I sang better, I would have joined the choir. If you heard the doorbell, you would have let him in. Notice that these mixed conditionals are all unreal and impossible situations. They are used to express how a past action affects the present, or how a present action affects the past. Now let's go on to look at words that we could use in place of if in the if clause and modals that we could use in the results clause. Now there are some alternatives to if. You can use other words or expressions instead of if. You can use as long as, provided that, on condition that, only if, assuming that, conceding that, whenever, when, assuming, suppose, supposing, and unless. Let's look at other modals that you could use. Conditionals use other modals other than the ones given. You can use modal auxiliaries such as can, could, may, might, must, and should, depending on the degree of capability or possibility that you wish to express. And not all of these modals will be used with every conditional. It depends if you want to make a prediction, a suggestion, or a question. Let's look at some examples. Sometimes we use inverted conditionals to make our sentences more formal. The inversion is done with the subject and verb in the if clause. The verb is placed before the subject. This is also called the reduced conditional. We do this type of reduction or inversion for the first, second, and third conditional. This is a very formal structure, and you may want to do this in your writing to add variety to your sentences. Now let's look at some examples. To invert the first conditional, you'll use the modal should in place of if. If I come home before you, I will start dinner becomes should I come home before you. If you walk under a ladder, you will have bad luck. Turns into should you walk under a ladder, you will have bad luck. To use inversion in the second conditional, you omit if and use were plus the subject for the be verb and were plus the subject and the to infinitive for other verbs. If I were a teacher, I wouldn't give homework on the weekend. Were I a teacher, I wouldn't give homework on the weekend. And let's look at the inverted or reduced form of the third conditional. This is formed by using had plus the subject plus the past participle. If he had asked me out, I would have said yes. Had he asked me out, I would have said yes. If you had been there, you would have enjoyed the show. Had you been there, you would have enjoyed the show. Now it's time to show what you know by taking a short quiz. This lesson was full of information and you learned almost everything there is to know about conditionals. Now let's talk about conditionals because there is controversy and disagreement about what conditionals are. Some say they are a verb mood and some say they are a tense. And some say they are neither, but rather a necessary function of the tense and mood to express a real and unreal condition. Remember that in English, we have three traditional moods, the indicative, the imperative, and the subjunctive. And we have a variety of tenses. Conditionals use tenses and moods to show that an expected result is conditional to something. So make sure you go back and review the parts of the lesson that you did not understand. And before you go on, please take a moment to subscribe and to hit that notification bell so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. I thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!